Well, hello everyone. Welcome to Myth and Meaning, a storyteller's hearth. I'm going to tell you the story that's from deep, deep in time. When the gods walked lightly and the world was still listening. I'm going to tell you the story of the Callieach and Brida. And the Callieach, she was a wise old woman. And she's someone kind of looked down upon through the old tales, but nonetheless, without her it'd be a whole different thing, because things must rest and things must sleep for them to be reawakened and for them to move on. It begins far up in Scotland. The Callieach, she was there from the beginning of time. Some say that she created the bones of the earth. Some say she shaped the land herself. She shaped the mountains, the gorges, the rivers and the lochs. And she was the goddess of winter. And under her rule, some say that winter lasted forever. She also had the ability to turn herself into an owl or an eagle at will. So one day, as she was flying around as her eagle, purveying her land, with the snow lying deep and heavy, the grass hardened, the trees locked in cold, and the frost glistening on the branches. She was flying low over a pine forest, with the pine martens and the squirrels and the jays and the robins and all the wee animals that they were hiding from the harsh winter. And she saw something in the corner of her eye, something bright. It looked like a flame. It looked warm. And immediately in her heart, she felt a twinge, she felt a pang, she felt jealousy. What is this warmth in my forest? So she circled down and got closer and closer, and before her she was flying. She could see it was a young, beautiful young lady, a beautiful girl, with long auburn curly hair, bright green eyes, a wee pointy nose, and little pixie-like ears. And she was wrapped in a warm red cloak, and under her arm was a wee wicker basket. So I'm going to find out what she's doing in my forest. There's something about this girl. And she looked again as she got closer, and she noticed the footsteps behind her. That the snow was melting for every footstep she took. So the Callieach, she swooped down and she got a bit of ahead of her. She swooped down and she turned herself into the old hag, with her old long bony fingers and her long pointy nose and her wrinkled face with a big black hood that covered most of her features, and her staff. And she walked onto the path to where the girl was walking. I said, "Good morning, missy. Good morning. What brings you to the forest on this cold, dark day?" I said, "Oh, well, I come to feed the animals. I feel sorry for the animals. They're cold and they're tired and they're hungry, so I come and feed them for this winter. This winter seems to be lasting forever." And the Callieach laughed. "Aye, that it is," she said. I said, "Well, after you've fed your wee animals, would you like to come back to mine, and we'll have a wee cup of tea and a scone?" And the girl, Brida was her name, she accepted. She said, "That'll be very, very kind of you." So she fed the animals, and she talked to the animals because they all knew her and they all trusted her. And the Callieach didn't like that as she was looking on. She's got those animals love her. How have I not seen this before? She said, come on, girlie, come on, missy, it's time to go, it's time to go. So the old hag took Brida by the arm, and before you know it, Brida was in the cave. She was in the Callieach's cave. It was quite a nice cave. It had a beautiful, beautiful roaring fire, beautiful hearth, a lovely wee kitchen with herbs and spices and potions. And she didn't know how she got there, but nonetheless there she was, deep below Ben Nevis, deep in the Callieach's cave. So as they sat by the hearth, drinking their tea and eating the scones and chatting, Brida felt warm. She felt warm, and she felt quite nice actually. But little did she know that the old hag, the old Callieach, she'd infused some special herbs and some special spices into the tea and into the scones. She infused the herbs and spices so she could control Brida. No matter what she asked, Brida would fulfill the task given to her. And she felt better about this. She felt that her controlling Brida was probably the right thing to do. Because what right has she got to walk around and melt her beautiful, beautiful snow and disturb her frostbitten land? So poor Brida was set to task. She scrubbed the floors, she swept the chimneys, she cleaned the windows, she cleared the snow from the garden to collect the lost of the vegetables. She tidied up around, she re-thatched the roof. She did everything, she did all the tasks, but she did all these tasks with a light heart. She fulfilled all these tasks with joy. And she fulfilled all the tasks with warmth, because Brida, she was warmth and she was joy. So as the weeks went on, the Callieach, she started feeling a bit weaker about herself. She started feeling a bit poorly. She started feeling a bit old. She started to be able to feel her bones and feel the cold, and everything was a bit more of a struggle. And as she thought on about this one cold morning in her bed, she said, it's that girl. It is that girl. She's causing this. I've got to do something about it. And she thought and she thought and she thought for some more, and she came and said, I know. I will give her an impossible task. An impossible task that she will never ever fulfill. And she will go to that task until the day she dies, because it will be impossible. So she called Brida. Brida, I want you to come here. So Brida came and said, I've got this fleece, this brown fleece, and I'd like you to wash it white for me in the river. Can you do that? And Brida says, of course I can do that. So she gave her the brown fleece, and Brida went down to the river. She went down to the river just before the turning leg, before the great pool. But little did Brida know that the fleece, it was from a brown sheep, and she'd been given an impossible task. So she set about, she sat by the river and got the stones, and she scrubbed and she cleaned, and she scrubbed and she cleaned some more, and it wasn't turning white. Although it was spotless by now, it wasn't turning white. So poor Brida, she sat there for days and days, and her hands cracked and her fingernails were warm, and she was cold and she was hungry, and she was starting to feel upset, and she was starting to feel not herself. She could feel the joy ebbing from her, she could feel the light coming from her, she could feel the warmth disappearing from her, and she's like, oh God, how am I going to get this white? So she picked up the fleece and she went to the town in the river where the great pool was. It's a great deep pool, dark, and she sat by the pool and she thought about her plight, and she wept into the pool. As she looked into the water, the pool It stirred, something stirred. And then it stirred again, and it stirred again, and out came the salmon of knowledge with his great, great salmon head. And said, Brida, why have you wept into my pool? I can feel that your tears are full of sorrow. I can feel your sorrow. Why? Why are you so sorrowful? Why are you so upset? So Brida tells the tale of the salmon of knowledge, the tale that I've told you. And he says, the old hag, that old hag, she's up to her tricks. She's known for this kind of thing. She's known for her jealousy. She's known for this. She's put a wee spell on you. And that's what she's done. She said, I tell you what, throw the fleece into the pool and I will take it down to the bottom and see what I can do. So Brida threw the fleece into the pool and the salmon grabbed it and took it down and down and down and down, down to the bottom of his great pool. And Brida looked up and she could almost discern that the icicles were getting shorter and the snow looked thinner on the trees and on the ground, and the frost it didn't seem to sparkle as brightly. So up came the salmon, the giant salmon of knowledge, with the fleece in his mouth. Bright, bright, brilliant white, diamond white, and as soft as clouds. He says, oh, there you go, Brida. There is your fleece, there is your task, it is fulfilled. You take that back to the Callieach's cave and we will see what occurs from now. Brida felt so happy. She was overjoyed. She was just chuffed. She was made up. She felt lighter than she'd ever had. And she felt like a spell had been broken, and she skipped and she pranced and she danced and she whistled and she sang all the way back to the Callieach's cave. She went under the thatch roof and then into the cave, and she placed the fleece above the fireplace and set about her task, light of heart and just out of willingness to help. And meanwhile, the Callieach, she was flying high in the sky, looking at her land, and she felt something. She felt like the wind wasn't lifting her anymore. The wind was around her and it was dragging her down. Her wings felt heavy. And she felt time was no longer before. It was actually going past her, and she grew more and more weary, and eventually she circled down and she landed with a bump. Oh, it was quite sore, because she did not land as an owl. Nor did she land as a goddess. She landed as the old hag. So she leant on her stick and pulled herself up and looked down from under the bright full moon, and before her was a path of beautiful, beautiful snowdrops leading all the way to her cave. So what is this? A snowdrop path? But really it was one of the most beautiful paths that anybody had ever seen. So, slightly disgruntled and a little bit cheesed off, she took herself on the path and she kind of wearily made her way back, somewhat bedraggled, and somewhat poorly and somewhat weak and not herself at all. And then she got in, and there's Brida cleaning away, whistling and singing and happy as ever, but she's looking brighter. Something was different about her, and the Callieach could sense that. He said, well, girl, what are you doing back here? I gave you a task and I need it fulfilled. You just can't just come back. And she said, well, I fulfilled the task that you gave me, and it was there above the fire. The Callieach looked over, and there, sure enough, was the fleece, brilliant white, diamond white, and as soft as clouds. He said, well, I daren't ask how she fulfilled an impossible task, because that will put me in the eyes. So the Callieach, tired and weary and feeling pretty sorry for herself, she had some soup and a wee scone, and she took herself up to bed without even saying a word. The next day she awoke, and she awoke around the 2nd of February, around Imbolc. And it was a beautiful, beautiful, clear day. And she said, oh, well, at least I can go out and collect my wood. I can collect my wood and stay warm by the fire for longer. Out she went, and she donned her basket, and the basket was heavier than it ever has been. And with each bit of wood she put in, it got heavier and heavier and heavier. But nonetheless, she filled the basket up. And as she was walking back, she came upon the loch side, and she noticed that quite a lot of ice had melted from the loch. It was quite unusual. So she went up to the water's edge, and the water was clear and crystal and no ripples, and she stooped down to look at her reflection. But there, looking back at her, wasn't the old hag with the long pointy nose and the big, big black hood. It was Brida. It was Brida beaming back with her beautiful long auburn curly hair, her bright, bright green eyes, a wee pointy nose and a wee pixie ears beaming back. And the Callieach said, oh, so this is how it ends. This is how my season ends, is it? I've been wondering. It doesn't end with fire. It doesn't end with terror. It doesn't end with war. But somehow, it ends with warmth. It ends with joy. It ends with singing. And it ends with snowdrops, bringing the promise of spring.